It's easy to get stuck reaching for the same familiar fruits and vegetables, even when you know a colorful variety is key. Balance of Nature's fruits and veggie supplements don't replace fruits and vegetables, but it makes it easy to add more variety to what you already eat. With 31 ingredients that are whole fruits and vegetables, switching it up is easy because we've already taken care of the hard part. Go to balanceofnature.com and get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first set as a new preferred customer by using discount code POD.
This is Cop Talk, talking crime, cases, and backing the blue. Now, here are your hosts, Captain Ed Mamet and Detective Kevin Schroeder.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of Cop Talk. I'm retired Captain Ed Mamet, New York City Police Department, and I'm filling in for our host, Kevin Schroeder, who's somewhere in the world. We'll find out where he is. Now, also, we have with us, replacing me, actually, if Kevin were here, is retired Sergeant Peter Panuccio. Say hello, Pete.
Thank you. So I'm filling in for you today, and you're filling in for
Right,
Kevin.
you're
okay.
like me and so on. And today's guest we've had on before, and we're very glad he's willing to come back. This is Hank Sheinkopf. Hank Sheinkopf is a very interesting guy. He's had a career that most people couldn't even think of. And we don't want to go through his entire career because we did it before, but he could talk a little bit about it if he wants, and then we'll get into the other subjects. Welcome, Hank.
First of all, I'm grateful, Captain. You have me here, Detective Sergeant. I'm happy to see you. I'm very grateful to be with such fine people.
So, Hank, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself that you didn't go through last time? Because there's some people listening that didn't hear the first time.
I bore myself, not because it's important, because I'm tired of hearing it. I've had an interesting life. I've worked on campaigns all over the world. I run a 4 continents, I guess. I don't like to break. 16 foreign countries. I've worked for... was an ad maker for a president of the United States named Bill Clinton. I've worked in 44 American states, campaigns at every level. In New York City, I've worked on, 6 or 8 successful citywide races. At one point, most of the congressional delegation. It's been interesting. I've worked all overseas. I've worked in the Caribbean. I've worked in South America. I've worked all over the world. What's else interesting? I don't know.
What would you call yourself?
My favorite things that I'm doing today. I have a pretty, thank God, very, very good public relations business. My clients include the New York City Detectives Endowment Association, which I'm very proud to be with those detectives every day. I worked for police unions in about 25 states on collective bargaining issues, on campaigns, including defeating civilian review in one case in California. I was there in L.A. during the famous riots in '92 for the Los Angeles Police Protective League. I'm a former policeman, former investigator. What else is there to say?
Well, now you're a political consultant, right?
I am, but I think of myself more as I say to people, there's only 3 things I really know in life of any competence. One is I know politics, I know the press, how to deal with the press corps, and I know a lot about policing. So that's, I guess, what brings us here today.
Speaking of policing, what's your opinion of the current situation with the communist Monday?
Well,
or whatever his name, Monday.
If he's smart, he'll keep playing the game of trying to keep Commissioner Tisch in place because it provides the notion that he's stable. But you have to look at his quotes. I mean, today was quoted, I think, in the New York Post. This is whatever day this is, the week that this is airing. That he compared he again berated the cops, called them, I think, fascists maybe, and said that their boots were laced with the laces of the Israeli Defense Forces, which it seems to be his 2 favorite topics, hating police and hating Jews. So it's a pretty good combination for him. But people should not be anywhere, nonchalant about this, because history teaches us, and Hannah Arendt, the great author, tells us very clearly that it always begins with the Jews, but it never ends with the Jews. So this always starts someplace. You're going to witness an administration, if he's elected, that will be very careful in the beginning about what it does, and then will not be so careful when it finds that it has dissent from people that do not agree with what they're doing.
Well, his attack on police is ridiculous because he keeps changing his tune. He says that he talks to cops on the street, about himself, but he never reveals who they are or what he said. So who believes him? I don't.
I don't. He's duplicitous. He's made comments where people have asked him, will you apologize to the police? His comment is, I've apologized for my statements. Hey, guy, you have not stepped up in front of the podium and said, I'd like to apologize for my comments to the NYPD. He's done a couple of things here and there. I've seen him posing with a few cops. Actually, they were auxiliary cops, which his campaign completely blew out.
I saw those tins, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you look at his history, if you look at his social media profile, this is going on 10 or 15 years, bashing the cops unmercifully.
Sarge, you're right. You know, the problem here is when you attack police in that way, you're really attacking the basic order of society, and you want to ensure that you can change it. And that is a deadly thing to do. You know, in this city, we've enjoyed an extraordinary good run with our cops. People may think otherwise, but they're wrong. We have a police department that is among the most multi-ethnic, multi-everything in the United States. I think today the numbers are close to 80% black, women, Latin, Asian. Gays were the Gay Officers Action League, I think, was recognized as a fraternal organization, the police department, in the 70s, early 70s, if memory serves me, or mid-70s. I mean, the idea that somehow the NYPD can be anything like the NYPD that he is discussing as someone who knows the institution and knows the cops in it is absolutely nuts, because it's not true. They may be talking about somebody else, but he's not talking about all of you.
He's not.
He's talking about something else. We don't know what that is, but again, but it tells you what he intends to do. This idea of creating a separate agency to handle theoretical social service calls when it comes to domestic disputes, for example, is among anybody in professional policing will tell you that that's among the more crazy ideas anybody's heard. Why? Because unfortunately, there were two brave police officers, I think it was 2 years ago, were murdered on a domestic abuse call, domestic conflict call, with the murderer hiding in the other room was ultimately taken down by a rookie police officer. I mean, they are the most dangerous calls, police officers tell me. So why would you put anyone at risk?
Yeah, you get this vague, ephemeris Department of Public Safety. Is there any kind of structure to it? No. Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to staff it? I'm of the opinion that there's probably a lot of people associated in his core base. Right. Social workers who need jobs. Is this just going to become another employment program for his cronies? Because at the end of the day, somebody still has to go out and do the work. And I can tell you right now, it's not going to be social workers and I'm not even talking about shootings, regular violence, people throwing stuff, people pulling knives.
Throwing bricks.
When you walk into these, sometimes it can start off rather peaceful and get violent. Sometimes you're walking into utter chaos. And as a civilian, you're not equipped to deal with it, especially if somebody starts using weapons against you.
Training and instinct take over in your job. Simple.
Yes, it does.
That is the difference between a police officer and a civilian.
Well, we've talked about this many times on the show about the mentally ill and the dangers of dealing with them. But there's also two other situations, traffic stops and domestic situations that are very dangerous because you never know how they're going to turn out.
Right. You
could stop a car for an alleged traffic violation and
that's
just escaped murderer. You know, and he has a gun there and he blows you away.
You brought up a good point because that's one of the things that's been bandied about amongst his people is having the NYPD completely removed from traffic enforcement. Who's going to stop it? Cars have been out of control pretty much for the last 5 or 6 years. We're seeing just people not obeying the laws, along with the bicycles. Okay, you take NYPD out of the mix.
Right.
Who's dealing with that? A social worker?
Well, you're being kind. You take police officers out of the traffic business entirely, you will increase the flow of guns into New York City because no one will be stopping those cars. Or having a guy with a broken taillight will have the authority to open that trunk, okay, and take a look at what's inside. You guarantee that the number of guns entering New York City will increase exponentially.
And narcotics.
And narcotics. Why?
Some of the best car stops started with a broken taillight or an illegal left turn.
It's nuts. It's nuts because, and the public is entitled to have that kind of protection. So the question becomes, what is this going to mean? We don't know exactly what the guy wants to do, but he's telling you what he intends to do pretty much. He's going to take apart the NYPD. He's going to control it or else. He's going to demean the roles of police officers. At his staffer last week say, who are those people? Tell them to shut up, they're employees. He doesn't understand the nature of the ethos of the police department. He doesn't understand how law enforcement should work at its best. And frankly, New York City law enforcement overall, all the agencies have done exceptionally well in the last 20 years compared to what was. Thank Michael Bloomberg for helping to straighten that out. That's just a fact of life. We're living through the end of the Bloomberg management era. It's coming to conclusion very quickly, and who knows what's going to follow after that. It's just, I don't think they get it.
It's easy to get stuck reaching for the same familiar fruits and vegetables, even when you know a colorful variety is key. Balance of Nature's fruits and veggie supplements don't replace fruits and vegetables, but it makes it easy to add more variety to what you already eat. With 31 ingredients that are whole fruits and vegetables, switching it up is easy because we've already taken care of the hard part. Go to balanceofnature.com and get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first set as a new preferred customer by using discount code POD.
He keeps talking about Jessica Tisch. What makes him think she would stay on? I mean, she's a proud Jew. She wears a Star of David openly. I mean, if she does go to work for him, she should be banished from the Hebrew race.
Well, that's one way to think about it. I make the following argument. She's 44 years old. She walked into a mess. She's cleaned up the mess rather well. If she had more time, she'd clean up more of the mess, okay? She's done something at least to keep the flow of cops on the street for the next umpty years by getting those classes out. The problem is, how do you stop the outflow and retirement of detectives, of lieutenants and superior officers? That is a problem because a cop is a cop. People don't think that way, but a lieutenant, a sergeant, a detective, they're cops. So if you reduce the number of cops, you create chaos. How she could deal with that, she's probably the only one who probably might have a plan to deal with that because she's a good manager. She's done a brilliant job in all the agencies she's worked in. To lose her in government would be a terrible thing, really, frankly, because she's level-headed and smart. Should she stay? That's a personal decision. I mean, I can't tell her what to do, nor would I try to, but it would be good to have somebody like that in government who's prepared to say, look, this is what we need to keep this agency functioning properly, to stop the retirements, the outflow, to give people an incentive to stay. Yeah, we are losing our best cops right now. We're losing our best detectives. Well, how do you replace somebody with 30 years worth of time as a homicide detective?
You can't.
How do you do that?
It's a tremendous drain on the experience level. And the older experienced people, supervisors, detectives, they're really like the de facto teachers for the younger cops. They're also, some of them are role models. And we're hemorrhaging good people out the door. The day I retired in 2020, 180 cops left the job that day. All, I'm not saying just that 20 years, well over 20 years. And it was a tough decision for me to make. But I got to the point where, what are you doing here? Number one, you're doing it 40 years. But number two, as much as I loved it, I'm like, this is just insane with what's going on in this city. And the situation really, I mean, there's been an ebb and flow with Adams. And I think Tish is doing a good job. I think, if she, I would like to have seen her do more, but she's doing as much as she can within the constraints put upon her.
Time is always a problem. She got there. She straightened up a lot of the problems. It appears just from the outside as someone who looking in and knows something about the institution. It's hard. I would not want to be in her position, but she's done it well. She's a great manager. But the problems that we're going to experience are deeper than that. Like you noted, it's retirements. Okay, it's constraints on law enforcement's ability to function. It's failure to probably fill the needed posts in other agencies that the police need. I mean, if you have more probation officers, picking up people on warrants, means Rikers will be a lot less troublesome, but you don't have the people to do the job. So who has to do the job? New York City police officers.
Which is a whole other issue.
It's a whole other
down
world.
Rikers.
And the Rikers thing is a whole other issue.
It's insane.
Well, he said that if she stays on, she will follow his lead, which to me, I can't imagine what the lead will be. But getting on to other things, there are other issues that we need to look at, like the DA's office.
Sure.
They're being funded by Soros. And I think you and I had mentioned that earlier. Can you give us your opinion on that? Because it's not just DA Bragg, it's DAs all over the country, and that affects police work everywhere.
Well, you can't have a just society if you have people who have a different view of justice determining who gets into office. It didn't work in San Francisco. I think they recalled the DA. It did work in Los Angeles. I think they tried to recall the DA. It's not working in Philadelphia, where the DA should be recalled or defeated. You can't walk the streets of Philadelphia. It's not working in other places where the DAs have been funded by Soros institutions, George Soros funded locations or outfits. It just doesn't work. Now, for some, it does work because they think that the level of justice supplied to people is, in fact, unfair. But I would argue that it's more unfair not to be able to walk the street, or for someone who is working, a new immigrant who's doing their best to be part of the American dream, who takes the subway at 3 o'clock in the morning as a waiter or a busboy or something from a restaurant, and gets stabbed and beaten to death on a subway system, which we've had.
Yeah, we have.
We've had them. That's less fair in every way, shape, and form than worrying about whether a lefty gets elected to a district attorney's office.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of George Soros. That was a slick move on his part, and I don't think people even noticed it happening as he started funding progressive DAs across the country.
Sure.
People didn't wake up until the damage was done.
Correct.
And you're like, wow.
But it violates the law. It violates basic religious law as well. The Bible in the book of Deuteronomy talks about a very it says very simply, it says judges and marshals, not police, marshals is the correct translation. You will appoint, who are incorruptible, who will make sure the common weal is protected, who will make sure there is no corruption of any kind, that will ensure fairness, and that there is order not to punish people, but to make sure that society functions. That is what's supposed to be. So what we have instead is the opposites. So we're telling you again that when you do these things, you obviously upend the religious order. It's not just about trying to say, oh, they're cops, they're fascists. That's nonsense. People are entitled to a modicum of safety and a modicum of belief in the system. When the system doesn't function, when a guy can get locked up 10 or 20 times for banging out stores where people work for a living, poor blacks, Latin, women, who are working to struggling to support their children, where those little drugstores get knocked out of business because they can't take the losses because of pilferage and theft and threats, and you got to put some kind of mechanical device around razors so you can't buy them, and the guy gets locked up 10 times. The same guy gets locked up 10 times, and the DA says, "I'm not going to consolidate these into 1 year in a felony so you can do a year at Rikers." There's something wrong with the system.
So what you're saying is Alvin Bragg wouldn't fit into that description.
I'm saying that the day one memo, which was publicized,
horrendous.
Whoever did that, I want to meet them. But the day one publicizing of that memo that said that resisting arrest would no longer be prosecuted tells you the tale. Because why don't you just put a crosshairs on some cop's head?
Yeah, the day one memo though came out 6 months before the election. Mm-hmm. Anybody who had seen it, especially people in law enforcement, Tom Kniff, who ran against them,
sure,
we were screaming. This guy is telling us what he's going to do.
Right. And
yet, here he is. He's still incredibly well funded by his machine. Maud Maron's running against him. And I'm a Manhattan resident, and this drives me up the wall. People should feel safe. That's the common refrain that we hear from a lot of people. People should feel safe. No, I don't want to feel safe. I want to be safe. I want to be safe when I'm walking the streets.
We politicized the district attorney's offices around the country. The era of a Frank Hogan for all his warts, or Bob Morgenthau, who was a friend of mine in the interest of disclosure, or scores of others who were like that, who set the model for making the
Morgenthau set the standard.
Make it work as best as it could, and understanding when you make mistakes to correct them. That's gone. We're now living in an era of straight politics, and part of the reason this is we have what I call the political industrial complex, where we have people who have never done anything but done politics, who worked in politics, who know nothing else but politics, who made their living out of politics, and will continue making their living out of politics. But I think all of those who are doing that in New York should pay very clear attention, because that era is likely to come to an end when the new administration, should Mamdani win, takes over, because we're going to find a lot of people not being able to eat. Now, I don't count myself among them, because in order to get through me, you got to get through Local 237 Teamsters, and about 20 other unions, and about a lot of cops and 150,000 active and retired civil servants. So I'm not worried about me. But the others who are trying to make a buck
my
at this-
bodyguard here.
Thank you, my brother.
We'll
but
take care of
I'm
it.
not worried about me, but I am worried about how the system functions. We need civilians, people who aren't involved in politics, in these jobs, in these settings, so we have a fresh look. Because the political view of the world is not making things better.
Yeah, and then you add in, we have the nonprofit industrial complex
Please,
in New York
exactly
City.
well said.
I mean, that's a topic we could go on for, but major problem within New York City.
Sure, absolutely. And they're also way around civil service. We put those people in these community-based organizations who are not civil servants, who don't relate to the civil service system. We're making a reasonable amount of money at the top. It's not. They don't. What do they do overall to make the system work or to make society better?
662,000 people in New York City. 17% of the, for lack of a better term, jobs are employed by nonprofits. A lot of those same nonprofits are funded by government, by the city of New York. Who's looking at them?
Well, the controller should.
Brad Lander? Well, Brad Lander, one of my favorite topics of things I like to kick around.
He's another Mandami.
Brad Lander, 2 months into office, gave his wife, Meg Barnett, it was a $550 million contract for, I believe it was Partnership for New York or a nonprofit New York. And people started to say, hey, whoa, this is your wife. She represents this nonprofit. You're giving her a $550 million contract. And Brad went to Conflict of Interest Board, who spent a total of 24 hours researching it and came back with a clean bill of health of that. And that's...
But there's a problem, as you know, between action and appearance. The appearance is lousy, therefore don't do it. The fact that he's on the left excuses it. If a guy who was in the center or right wing did it, they'd be pillaring him, unquestionably so.
Yeah, I actually made a complaint with him to the Conflict of Interest Board. This guy's out campaigning 24/7, or he's getting arrested in the courthouse when he was running for mayor. I know if I took off most of my working day when I was still employed by the police department, when I was submitting a we called a UF-28 for time off.
Yep.
Does anybody turn around and say, hey, you're campaigning when you're supposed to be controlling? And we didn't see much controlling, let's just say, over the last 4 years with him. There's no, of course I never heard, I called him up and he says, well, should we decide to look into it, all right, you're never going to do anything with it. It's as simple as that.
Hank, getting on to another area, what's your opinion of the federal troops moving into cities where the police are either not doing what they're supposed to do or the mayors are holding the police back?
I'm troubled by the violation, frankly, of a basic portion of American constitutional protections, which is posse comitatus. And I don't think police officers should be usurped or their authority usurped by federal troops. It is not a good idea. It is reminiscent of societies, for example, in Central and South America and others where freedoms have been certainly curtailed. I think that we ought to have more police in these cities where required. They ought to be funded by the federal government. It'd be a better thing to do, like we did with LEAA back in the day, which turned out a tremendous number of competent, qualified police officers who served the nation with distinction.
That's why I got my college degree.
Does that
through
still
them.
exist, LEAA?
No, I got my first master's by LEAA. I'm grateful. I know cops that got master's, law degrees, and went out to be better cops. And
I got my master's through LEAA.
And it made everybody. And we were talking about Arthur Niederhoff, may rest in peace, lieutenant of the New York City Police Department, who was my advisor at John Jay and was your professor, I think. One of the things, he was the kind of guy that LEAA helped create,
Right?
that they were able to teach. This idea of bringing federal troops into these cities, in my view, it frankly reduces the value of local policing, which is not a good idea.
Well, yeah, there's a fine legal line because the National Guard can be used for that, and they have been used in the past.
In a riot, in a major service.
Riots and things like that. But they can also be federalized. And once they become federalized, are they considered U.S. troops or the National Guard? I mean, what's the legal argument regarding posse comitatus?
I can't argue that. What I can do is that there's something chilling about seeing those troops in the place of police officers. This civilian government essentially has worked very well for a long time, with its moments of disaster and its moments of problems, but it's worked very well. The concern here is larger politically, which we go to politics. If Mamdani is elected in New York, with the guy in Chicago where 13 people were killed in one weekend, I think in one weekend also 4 law enforcement officers were killed, 3 feds and 1 Chicago police officer. I mean, it's extraordinary to me. You have New York, Chicago, Minneapolis, potentially Seattle, potentially Portland.
San Francisco?
And San Francisco. Well, San Francisco now is under control. Mayor Lurie is cleaning the place up and putting it back in some order, doing a good job. But you put all of this together, what it does is it ensures that Republicans will have a platform on which to run that talks about disorder versus order. And the creation really of kind of 2 countries. The disorderly America, which is to be, voted against, and people who live in the suburbs and the exurban portions of the country will do what they've always done, which is to vote against the cities, which is not good news, and will further divide this country. Yeah, that is my deepest concern.
I think that's going to be a 2-step process. They'll bring in federal law enforcement first, ramp up what they're doing with ICE. If Mamdani is the mayor, then the clashes are going to start. And I think we're going to see serious problems, and I think that may well be the justification, sending in the National Guard, sending in, you
very well may be correct, and Sergeant, I think that if you take it to the next step, what it does is it creates the great divide against the cities in this country, which is not good news.
Yeah, I don't want to take any of these steps at all.
I know you're not. I know you're not hoping it happens. So I'm just, as an observation, it is not good news for the country because it creates further splits, which we really don't need. Will Mamdani be able to do half the things he wants or talks about? The answer is no. Why? There will be no money. The state has a serious deficit. The city will have a serious deficit. If he becomes the mayor, the federal funds to some extent will be shut down. It'll be difficult for him to run this city. And if he thinks he's going to get past the municipal unions, he hasn't met them yet. He thinks he knows who they are, but I can tell you he really doesn't know who they are.
Well, a lot of people don't realize is that the city is a creature of the state.
That's correct.
And there is only limited power. There is some local law, but I think that he is going to be held back. If the state does their job, he won't be able to get things done the way he thinks he can.
Well, you're right, Captain, especially if there's a fiscal problem. Fact is, the governor of the state of New York is referred to in the state constitution before women, of course, as His Excellency. There's a reason for that. If you look at 75 and the city went bust in 75, the governor took control almost immediately. A financial control board was put into place.
I remember that.
The state ensured that funds were issued in order to keep the place going through using what Steve Berger, who was brilliant, still is and very much alive, created MAC bonds.
Felix Rohatyn.
But the unions were critically important in that process. And anybody who thinks that they're not is mistaken. The basic power of municipal labor has not changed. They don't have the relationships with the mayor, this coming mayor, if he's the mayor, Mamdani, that he thinks he has, because he hasn't been in confrontation with them yet. He'll have 6 months to blame everybody else. But once that first budget is struck on July 1st, which is when it happens, 12:01 a.m. July 1st, he will be in a different planet. And everybody in the state legislature and in the governor's office will turn on him. You know why? Because they've got to get reelected in November of 2026. It will be a very different day for him. And they can jump up and down and scream and complain about everybody all they want, but those are realities they have to face. He's got to put a fiscal plan in place in January. He's got to have a budget in place on July 1st, 12:01 a.m. Not so simple.
That's a great point. It really
Not so
is.
simple.
Well, I go back to de Blasio when we had the disorder.
Right.
He told the police, hold back, don't do anything. Now, if that's the case, who's going to take up the work? That's where the National Guard could be used. But politically, most politicians don't want to use the National Guard because it appears that they're losing control of their government.
But they want to lose control because the reality is that you cannot order a police officer not to take action when there's a crime being committed in front of that police officer's face. You know that in the academy.
I agree.
You see a crime being committed, you are obligated by statute.
And by oath.
By oath,
to
uphold the Constitution of the state of New York and of the United States and the laws of the state of New York. It says it right there when you hold up that hand.
Yeah, but the politicians get away with it. They dishonor the oath.
They do dishonor the oath, but it's going to be very different if it gets out of hand. We hope and pray that it does not.
That's where we get into the subject of what is lawful order.
Right.
Correct.
And Mondami said a couple of things right now that I'm like, if I was the police commissioner, I'd have to say, you got to take a step back. Yeah.
Right.
If I was a police officer, ordered to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu, who has diplomatic immunity,
Right.
because of an international court warrant. All right, it's insane. People eat that up when he says it. By the same token, as the guy who has to put handcuffs on people, I'm like, are you out of your mind? And at the end of the day, it's going to come to a point where what is lawful orders, what is unlawful.
Well, look what happened in Chicago. ICE was being attacked, and the chief of patrol told the cops to lay off.
That was an actual incident with shots fired, and they did not.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that happening.
If that happens, it is the breakdown of a lawful society, because there are things that are supposed to be done. A police officer is a police officer. If someone is being shot at and there's shots fired, when you take that oath, to and also get qualified immunity at the moment you take that action. There's a reason for it, and qualified immunity is under attack. And the danger in that would be so extraordinary that we would not be able to walk the streets.
Speaking of qualified immunity,
cops don't have it here in New York City anymore.
It's a terrible thing. Just the idiocy of 50A, qualified immunity, and the diaphragm compression bill alone are three of the stupidest things ever imaginable, because they put every New Yorker and
I'll second that emotion.
And everybody who comes to this town as a guest at risk. Because the greatest police officers I ever met cannot do the job that they want to do and are sworn to do, and it's a tragedy.
You know, many of the people and some of our listeners and viewers don't know what qualified immunity is. It's actually a U.S. Supreme Court decision that affects the entire nation, police officers everywhere. And what it offers is the defense for police officers who are acting in good faith.
Correct.
If they're acting in good faith, they get the presumption of doing the right thing. Now, what happened in New York State, the New York State legislature came out with something, but we're not going to allow community qualified immunity as a defense, and the city doubled down on that. So it still exists, but it's a question of whether the Corporation Counsel or the lawyers who are defending the cops use it, and they're restricted from using it.
There'll be a comeuppance. At one point, there'll be a case that has qualified immunity, the diaphragm compression bill, and 50A all in one place. And that'll be the great explosive moment, okay? When a cop's name at home is revealed for doing the right thing, for a complaint that had absolutely no legs to it, and was tossed out, but his name was put there anyway, because he took an action to protect someone's life who was deemed at the moment, based upon his training and knowledge, was in danger, okay? And he put the cuffs on somebody while doing what? While putting pressure on this part of the body to this part of the body, and suddenly found himself in legal trouble. When that day comes, it will be the end of the NYPD as we know it. And that is the danger all of you who serve this city with distinction face. Remember, I said it.
And with the end of the NYPD, which I hope never happens.
But you would agree with that what I said?
Yes.
That would be the worst day the police officers ever had, because the NYPD is the model for every police department in the country and in the world, for professionalism and for size, dimension, and management, and innovation. The day that happens, the situation I just said to you, will be a terrible day for this country.
Well, Hank, this has been a very good interview. For the second time we've had you. Maybe we'll have you on more.
My pleasure. Thank you, Captain.
I hope that this interview runs before the election is over. I'm not sure it will, but we've covered areas that should be known. Pete, you want to say something in closing?
No, it's a great interview.
Brought up some. Not at loss for words.
I'm not. I'm sitting here. I really enjoyed the conversation because you brought up some fantastic points.
Thank you.
And you took things, like you said, mentioning about the budget on July 1st. A lot of people haven't thought that one out that far yet.
They should start thinking.
And the rubber's going to hit the road, like you said, when it collides with the unions. And unfortunately, what you just discussed, that day is going to come.
I hope not. I hope not for every decent citizen and every indecent citizen in the city, because everybody will be impacted at that moment. Once you cross that Rubicon, you cannot go back. You just can't. I said to somebody started at me one day, he said, no, they said, diaphragm compression. I said, come here. I said, get a pair of cuffs. Now you try to lock me up without touching any part of the body from here to here and see what happens. Good.
We've all been in melees.
Good.
And you wind up on top of somebody. Not intentional.
Right.
There are certain groups, certain prosecutors, they're going to view it differently, and that cop will be placed at tremendous risk.
Terrible, terrible, terrible.
With those thoughts, we will terminate the review.
Thank you.
As Kevin would say, God bless law enforcement, God bless the United States, God bless everybody. And thank you very much, Hank, for appearing. You did a great job.
I'm happy to be here, and thank you for having me. You did a great job, both of you. I'm grateful to be here with you.
Well, that's nice to know.
Thank you, sir.
It's easy to get stuck reaching for the same familiar fruits and vegetables, even when you know a colorful variety is key. Balance of Nature's fruits and veggie supplements don't replace fruits and vegetables, but it makes it easy to add more variety to what you already eat. With 31 ingredients that are whole fruits and vegetables, switching it up is easy because we've already taken care of the hard part. Go to balanceofnature.com and get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first set as a new preferred customer by using discount code POD.